The best war movies are those that draw on real history to tell their tales of the horror and triumph of armed conflict. But you might be surprised to learn that the characters in some of the most popular war films were directly based on real folks. So, today we're unmasking all the characters in your favorite war movies who were based on real people. But before we charge forth, make sure you're subscribed to the Weird History channel. After that, leave a comment letting us know what war-related topic you would like to see us cover next. All right, has anyone seen Private Ryan? He was just here. David Ayer's 2014 film Fury often gets credit for its unyielding portrayal of the brutal realities of combat. But there's a softer side to the story. Fury focuses on a tank crew led by Don War Daddy Collier as they encounter the bloody fields of Europe during the final days of World War II. War Daddy, played by Brad Pitt, deeply cares for his men throughout the film and isn't afraid to show it. This is something he has in common with his real-life inspiration, U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Lafayette G. Poole. Born in Odom, Texas, Poole volunteered for the Army in 1940. Passing up a promotion to become a second lieutenant, Poole instead opted for the battlefield, where he would assemble a team of tank aces. Poole was a reliable soldier who was fiercely dedicated to his men. Unlike his fictional counterpart, Poole made it home and lived until 1991, when he passed away at the age of 71. Christopher Nolan's 2017 film Dunkirk features an unforgettable performance by Mark Rylance as Mr. Dawson, who is based on the real-life commander Charles Lightoller. Like Dawson, Lightoller was determined to take his own ship to Dunkirk, rather than let it be commandeered by the Navy. Additionally, both men relied on the advice of their late sons to avoid being sunk by the Germans. But Lightoller's heroics at Dunkirk weren't the only thing he became known for. As an incredible footnote, he was also the most senior officer to survive the sinking of the Titanic. Ugh, can we get a movie just about that guy? Saving Private Ryan combines rousing action and intimate drama in a way only Steven Spielberg can do. It centers around a group of soldiers trying to locate Private James Francis Ryan, played by a Good Will Hunting era Matt Damon. Ryan is being held captive behind enemy lines after his brothers perished in combat. While the group of soldiers does accomplish their goal of finding Private Ryan, many of them lose their lives in the process. The true story, while tragic, is less dramatic. The real-life Sergeant Frederick W. Fritz Nyland did have brothers who were killed in action, and another who went missing over Burma. But Nyland himself was never the target of a daring search mission. He was evacuated to the UK, and then to the US, with minimal fuss. What's more, Edward, the brother shot down over Burma, also survived imprisonment and made it back to the US. All in all, real life had a much happier ending than the one we got in the film. Director Oliver Stone has always been interested in America's fraught periods of history, particularly the Vietnam War. His 1986 classic Platoon looks at the experience of soldiers on the ground, featuring moving performances like Willem Dafoe as Sergeant Elias. The film character is idealistic, in marked contrast to some of the other characters, most notably Tom Berenger's Sergeant Barnes. This is because, according to Stone, Elias was based on a real man whom the director wished to honor. U.S. Army Sergeant Juan Angel Elias was reportedly a nice guy and got along well with most of his fellow soldiers. Sadly, the Purple Heart recipient perished in a grenade explosion in 1968. The film's version of Elias, meanwhile, is similarly well-liked by most of the platoon, but falls victim to the traitorous Barnes and is left behind to be fatally shot by the North Vietnamese Army. It's, the image on the poster. Spoilers for Platoon, I guess. Quentin Tarantino's Inglorious Bastards is filled with his usual over-the-top violence and snappy dialogue. It also takes some remarkable liberties with the history of World War II in its pursuit of a compelling narrative. But that doesn't mean everything in the 2009 film is fabricated. Daniel Bruo's role as German sniper Friedrich Zeller is based on two real people, American Audie Murphy and Austrian Matthias Hetzenauer. After becoming one of the most celebrated and decorated soldiers in World War II, Murphy found mainstream fame as an actor in the 1950s and 60s. Hetzenauer, on the other hand, was a sniper who eliminated more than 300 men. Like many of the fictional soldiers on this list, Zola dies by the end of the film. However, both of his real-life inspirations survived the war. Murphy perished in a 1971 plane crash, and Hetzenawa passed away at age 79 in 2004. While Roland Emmerich's Revolutionary War epic, The Patriot, may be a stirring piece of filmmaking, it's not the most historically accurate movie. Several truths are twisted in the name of the story, which follows Colonel Benjamin Martin, played by Mel Gibson, and his nemesis, Colonel William Tavington, played by Jason Isaacs. One accuracy the 2000 film can claim is that Tavington is based on a real person, British Army Colonel Bannister Tarleton. Like his cinematic counterpart, Tarleton was known for his ruthlessness and was particularly active in the American South. Of course, Emmerich gave Tavington a much more dramatic demise than Tarleton's actual experience. In the film, Martin defeats Tavington in hand-to-hand combat. But in the real world, Tarleton survived the war and returned to England, eventually serving in Parliament. Is that worse than getting smoked in a hand-to-hand duel? Who can say? Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now is acclaimed as one of the director's iconic masterpieces. Released in 1979 and based on Joseph Conrad's novella Heart of Darkness, it aimed to give viewers an understanding of what the Vietnam War was really like. To achieve this goal, the film drew inspiration from the life of CIA paramilitary operations officer Anthony Poshepny in its depiction of Colonel Kurtz. Played by the incredible Marlon Brando, Kurtz is a cruel megalomaniac intent on winning the war at any cost. Poshepny, also known as Tony Poe, was likewise known for his wartime barbarity. Unlike Kurtz, however, Poe managed to survive. He was ultimately deported from Thailand back to the U.S., where he passed away in 2003 at age 78. Stanley Kubrick's 1987 film Full Metal Jacket is an unabashed display of cynicism about war and its impact on the young men forced to fight. The audience suffers through the horrors of the Vietnam War alongside Matthew Modine's Sergeant J.T. Joker Davis, both on and off the battlefield. But while Kubrick's darkly funny and bleakly tragic style is all over this movie, it isn't an original story. Full Metal Jacket was based on Gustav Hasford's 1979 novel The Short Timers, an autobiographical novel inspired by Hasford's own experience in the U.S. Marine Corps. One significant difference between Joker and Hasford is their military status. While Joker is shown to be a Marine recruit, Hasford was a military journalist and Marine veteran who had published pieces with several magazines before writing The Short Timers. Director Catherine Bigelow's 2012's Zero Dark 30 was a suspenseful film about one of the 21st century's most complex conflicts, focusing on the efforts of American intelligence agencies to locate Osama bin Laden in the years following the September 11th attacks. CIA intelligence analyst Maya Harris, played by Jessica Chastain, will go to any length to get what she needs. And even though her methods may seem extreme, her unrelenting pursuit of information is more fact than fiction. Alfreda Frances Bukowski, the CIA agent on whom Maya was based, has been forthright in her belief in the value of practices like waterboarding, which she feels has been beneficial in curbing terrorism. She put the dark in Zero Dark 30. "2012's Red Tails shines an important light on the Tuskegee Airmen, a group of black pilots who served in the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II. Directed by Anthony Hemingway, with additional photography helmed by George Lucas. Yep, that George Lucas. The movie features the character First Lieutenant Joe Lightning Little, played by David Oyelowo. Despite Lightning being an invention for the movie, his reckless personality and brilliant mind are inspired by Tuskegee Airmen Captain Wendell Pruitt. According to Oyelowo, many of the real-life airmen he spoke to remarked upon his character's similarities to Pruitt, particularly in his attitude and fierce competitive spirit. Edward Zwick's The Last Samurai focuses on Ken Watanabe's Lord Moritsugu Katsumoto and Tom Cruise's Nathan Algren, who befriended each other during a pivotal period in 19th century Japanese history. Like the rest of these Hollywood war movies, this 2003 film blends the fictional and the actual, particularly when it comes to Algren. The character is based on Jules Brunet, who visited Japan and came to identify with the samurai and their war against the emperor. But unlike Algren, Brunet was not an American Civil War vet. Rather, he was a Frenchman who ended up returning to France after the defeat of the samurai, whereas Algren's ambiguous fate became wrapped up in a soft-spoken pursuit of love. Hey, it's a movie. You gotta throw a love story in there somewhere. Directed by John Moore, 2001's Behind Enemy Lines stars Owen Wilson as U.S. Navy Lieutenant Chris Longhorn Burnett, who, as the title implies, ends up stuck behind enemy lines during the Bosnian War in the mid-90s. Throughout the film, Burnett plays a key role in exposing genocide, but in doing so, he shows himself to be a man who refuses to take orders, and his brash behavior comes very close to being his undoing. Burnett's character is supposedly based on U.S. Air Force Captain Scott O'Grady, who was less than thrilled with his portrayal in the film. O'Grady claimed he wasn't the type to refuse orders, and insisted he wasn't as reckless as his on-screen counterpart. So he filed a lawsuit against film studio 20th Century Fox, alleging an invasion of privacy and claiming the studio made wrongful profits out of his real lived experience. In 2004, this suit was settled, though the details remain confidential, almost as if they're behind enemy lines. So what do you think? Which of these war movie inspirations did you find the most interesting? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.